Hey guys, no matter what decade you were born in or what country you were born in, you will have heard of the wacky bunch of characters called the Looney Tunes. If you haven't, there's something wrong with you because I live in the darkest depths of the ocean and even I know who they are. You are familiar with characters like Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, Sylvester, Tweety, and many others. However, there is one Looney Tune character that is only a few decades old that has had a very interesting history. This character is, of course, Lola Bunny. Like many fictional characters, there have been different versions of Lola. Some good, and some not so much. Today I'm here to rank 10 different versions of Lola. I'm not including video games, due to them not really showing any of the Looney Tunes personalities or Bugs Bunny builders, due to it currently not being available in the area I'm in. I will talk about each version of Lola, and at the end rank them. And before you say anything, yes, I'm stealing this idea of ranking things from Martin Girls. Don't judge me. But do check out her content because it's amazing. Please keep in mind that this is just my personal opinion. Don't throw a hissy fit if I say something that you don't agree with. Besides, I have the power to delete your comments, so don't waste your time with a hate comment. Now with that out of the way, let's begin. Space Jam. A little history first, but I'm not going to go into great depth. Anyway, originally Bugs Bunny's lifelong girlfriend from the comics, Honey Bunny, was going to make her screen debut in Space Jam. However, they ended up getting rid of her because she looked too much like Bugs in drag, and we already had Bugs himself for that. Plus, with a name like Honey Bunny, you know that the character isn't going to work because that name is just stupid. Anyway, they decided to come up with a new female love interest for Bugs that could appeal to a female audience. Some names they came up for her were Daisy Lou or Lola Rabbit before finally deciding on Lola Bunny. Designing her was a challenge because they wanted her to look more like her own character rather than the likes of Minnie Mouse or Daisy Duck who looked like gender-bent versions of Mickey and Donald respectively, but weren't sure how to do that. After all, that's why Honey Bunny was scrapped. One of her designs ended up looking like a 12-year-old girl, which would make her being with Bugs Bunny very awkward and uncomfortable. There were also designs that were deemed too sexualized and inappropriate. While the character was still presented in a sexual manner, it was toned down a lot in the finished product. Now that we're done with the history, let's talk about Lola's role in the film and her personality. Sadly, Lola, voiced by the phenomenal Kath Soucie, isn't really in the film very much, having less than 5 minutes of screen time and not making her first appearance until somewhere in the middle of the film. Her introduction is her most remembered scene in the movie. She is the only one, apart from Jordan, that knows anything about basketball and comes to try out. Bugs, of course, falls instantly in love with her, but isn't really objectifying her. However, he makes the terrible mistake of calling her Doll, which is a name she doesn't really care for, to put it mildly. She manages to show off her skills while putting Bugs in his place and afterwards says her iconic catchphrase.
Don't ever call me Doll.
After that, her scenes are mostly just minor moments, with the only major moments afterwards being her getting ready for the game, her introduction in the game, her getting her one dunk shot and proving that she shouldn't be messed with or called Doll, her damsel in distress moment, and of course her and Bugs kissing. Lola has often been accused of having no personality, which really only started happening after the Nostalgia Critic did his review of the movie. However, that statement is absolutely inaccurate. While she's not given a lot of screen time or allowed to be loony like the others, she still has a personality. She's strong, competent, independent, smart, feisty, playful, fiery, knows her self-worth, is athletic, kind, caring, is comfortable with her body, is a tomboy but still feminine, and has a lot of great facial expressions to show her personality when she's not speaking. I do think they should have had her introduced earlier in the film, gave her more screen time, and allowed her to be wacky like the others. I know why they didn't, because they knew fans would be upset about spending all this time with a new character rather than focusing on the characters they actually came to see. However, that doesn't mean they wouldn't fall in love with her if they had handled her right. I mean, look at Harley Quinn, who originated in Batman the Animated Series. It was meant to be just a one-time character for one episode, but went on to become one of the most beloved characters in the DC world. I personally think they should have modeled Lola's personality a bit more after Babs Bunny from Tiny Toons, while still making her different enough from Babs to be her own character. I also do admit that the sexualization of an animated animal original is very weird, and it wouldn't be the only time that it would be done. I do think that Sherry Stoner, known for writing shows like Animaniacs and Tiny Toons, as well as being the voice of Slappy Squirrel, should have been one of the people working on the film, particularly in the writing for Lola. She does a great job at making female characters be wacky and funny just like male characters without reducing them to stereotypes. So yeah, the way the character is written is flawed, but she's still a great character, and the start of a new, beloved character being introduced into the Looney Tunes. However, it's a shame that her iconic "Don't ever call me doll" catchphrase wouldn't be in any other adaptation of the character. DC Comics. After becoming an overnight success with Space Jam, which would become a cult classic, Lola made her transition to the DC Comics. At first, she would make minor appearances, like her being dressed up as Daphne Blake in a satire of Scooby-Doo. However, she would end up making solo appearances where she would be allowed to act like a traditional Looney Tune. She would have foes to face, would get injured like the others, would make snarky jokes, break the fourth wall, and be a trickster. She had a temper to her and an attitude that would be similar to Tina Russo from the Looney Tunes show, and a little bit of Slappy Squirrel and Babs Bunny. In the comics, she was a pizza delivery girl for not only regular people, but also for ancient spirits, deities, godlike beings, and mythical creatures. She rarely was with Bugs in her solo comics, which allowed her true potential to be used to its full advantage. She was still strong, smart, and competent, but was also allowed to be silly and wacky. She even went on a rant about someone who never returned her lunchbox from grade school. Her looks were still sexualized, but she was able to use that to her advantage, like Minerva Mink from Animaniacs, only without her being so objectified. There was even a comic of a human that was in love with her in such a pathetic way. I think that might have been the creators poking fun of the furries that fetishized her, and if you've seen some of the fan art of her on the internet, you'd feel the same way Lola does in this comic. These comics were so awesome that many fans, including myself, wish that they would make some traditional Looney Tunes shorts based on these comics. This is often seen as the best version of the character, and for good reason. I highly recommend checking out these comics. You won't be disappointed. Tweety's High-Flying Adventure. This appearance is very minor, but still worth mentioning. In this movie, Lola makes a cameo appearance as a news reporter, once again voiced by Kath Soucie. She makes a brief appearance talking about the progress Tweety is making on his journey, and there's a cool moment where she's spinning a basketball. It was a small scene, but it was still cool and showed her sporty personality. Not much to it, but it was still nice to see her making an appearance. Baby Looney Tunes. This show was a staple for any kid who was staying home sick from school, since this show only came on when kids were at school for some reason. This show was obviously meant to capitalize off the success of Muppet Babies and Rugrats. However, that doesn't mean the show is bad, because it's still good. Yeah, the Looney Tunes aren't being zany like they normally are, but they are still true to their personalities. I mean, we aren't gonna see Sylvester trying to eat Tweety, except for those musical numbers, or Taz trying to eat, well, everyone, but it's a different setting. Anyway, Lola, voiced by Britt McKillop, is pretty true to her original personality, with her being a feminine tomboy that is self-reliant, smart, witty, athletic, strong-willed, kind, caring, and all that jazz. She is more emotional, but that makes sense with her being a toddler. This also means she can have some bratty moments like any other kid. In one episode, she pouted all throughout the episode to get her way. In one episode, she would boss everyone around to be more like Granny. One where she bossed others around because Granny said they should be more like Lola, and tattled on others, which started out with good intentions, like Daffy using adult scissors and Sylvester stealing Taz's food, but ended up with her doing it just so she could get praise from Granny. Her being skilled at sports isn't kept exclusively to just basketball, but she's also skilled at badminton, to the point where Bugs and Daffy fight over who gets to have her on their team, soccer, and baseball, enough to where she can give advice to a major league coach that won them the game after pestering him to death. In my absolute favorite Lola Bunny episode, Tea and Basketball, she is clearly very skilled at basketball, but Bugs doesn't even consider her to be on his team to play against Daffy. He doesn't tell her that she can't because she's a girl, but he doesn't really think of her as an option because she's a girl, despite making it very clear that she is. One of the reasons this episode is is so great is because of how it fights against gender roles, not only for girls, but for boys too. Sylvester doesn't want to play basketball, but rather play tea party with the girls. However, the girls, except for Lola of course, tell him that he can't because he's a boy and isn't supposed to like girly stuff like tea parties. As a merman who grew up loving feminine things, I relate to that, and was often shamed for it, especially by certain members of my family. I love how this episode doesn't have Lola upset because she hates feminine things, because in other episodes she will play dolls and do feminine activities, but is upset because she isn't given a choice in the matter. She isn't even bitter at Sylvester for being in the game instead of her, and actually tries to help him due to how terrible he is at basketball. They had a kindred spirit in this episode, and in the end, due to some deception from Sylvester with the help of Granny, Lola is in the game, which ends up having Bugs win the game against Daffy, and Sylvester is allowed to play Tea Party. I love how in this show we do get to have her interacting with other characters and not just Bugs. There was a brief moment in Space Jam where she interacted with Daffy, but that was it. Here we get to see her have a connection with the others, and it feels organic. My favorite is, of course, her and Bugs, but my favorite besides Bugs was her interactions with Daffy. They felt like a brother and sister that argue.
Listen, sister, why don't you just make like a tree and vamoof? Okay, maybe I will. Oh, and Daffy, the line's supposed to be, why don't you make like a tree and leave?
She is also one of the 3 characters that appear in every single episode, the others being Bugs and Daffy, of course. Anyway, this is a great version of Lola, and just because she's a baby doesn't mean she doesn't have her personality. But because she is a baby, she, like the other characters, is still limited in what she can do. Still great though. Dating do's and don'ts. When the fans said they wanted Lola Bunny shorts, we did not mean this. In this story, Bugs wants to take Lola on a date, but her father tries to prevent it, and even takes her to Paris to keep her away, despite that she is a grown-ass woman but is being treated like a teenager. And yeah, Bugs ends up getting the prize in the end. While not as terrible as a certain adaptation of Lola, which we will get to later, it's still really bad. Lola is completely out of character here. She doesn't even speak and just giggles when Bugs is talking to her. She's reduced to a bimbo who is only there to be arm candy and nothing more.
Hello, Lola. It's Bugs. So, how's about stepping out with me for a carrot juice? This girl is some conversationalist.
Lola is supposed to be this strong, independent, smart, and competent character that knows her self-worth and doesn't let herself be treated as property. Here, she's just getting her fate decided by being treated like a child by her father and treated like a giggling twit that fawns all over Bugs. In Space Jam, Bugs had to prove himself to Lola and treat her like the intelligent and capable person she is. So yeah, this sucks. Next, Loonatics Unleashed. First of all, yes, I am aware that this is not Lola, but it is still a variation of the character, so it counts. Secondly, this is a very underrated and overly hated show. Is it flawed? Yes, but it's still a lot of fun and entertaining with likable characters, funny humor, and great action scenes. Anyway, this is Lola's descendant, Lexi Bunny, voiced by Jessica DeSico. She pretty much has the same personality as Lola, though a bit more feminine and is a little more into her looks without being shallow. What she does have that Lola doesn't is super hearing and the ability to shoot blasts from her ears. She is second in command to Ace Bunny, Bugs Bunny's descendant, and deserves that title. She manages to stand out from the rest of the group, and not just because she's the only female member. She's strong, smart, sassy, athletic, kind, caring, competent, doesn't take guff from anyone, and is even willing to give up herself in order to save the Earth in the episode It Came from Outer Space. She has all the qualities of a true hero and is still unapologetically feminine. She's more feminine than Lola, but that's not a bad thing. She knows she's a badass, but she doesn't let anything come in the way of her being a girly character. Not to mention, I really love her interactions with Danger Duck, Daffy Duck's descendant, and how they act like brother and sister. This is how I imagine Lola and Daffy's interactions with each other being like.
Reminds me of some of the guys who keep calling you. Except the rocks have more personality. Watch the feathers. I organized a rescue mission to save you.
Right. Was that before or after you planned to divide up my things? Super hearing, remember?
Hey, you'd have to have a warrant to use those things.
Okay, Okay, Duck, it's your shift to monitor all comm traffic.
Real crime fighters don't take shifts. We're on duty 25/8, 9 days a week, 55 weeks a year.
I guess real crime fighters don't spend much time in school either.
Lexi was definitely the best part of this show. The Looney Tunes show. Well, we have a different version of Lola, voiced by Kristen Wiig, one that has been met with mixed reception. This Lola has a much different personality because instead of being a smart, strong, independent, and competent character, she is a scatterbrained, idiotic, psycho-stalker, man-obsessed nuisance. Basically, she is the polar opposite of who Lola was originally.
Oh, here it is. Oh, hello? Hi. Oh, nothing. I'm just on a date with a really cute guy. He's sitting across from me right now. He's totally looking at me. Oh, no, wait. Now he's looking down. Now he's looking around. Oh, no, he's looking at me again. I better go. Okay, call me later. Bye.
Friend of yours?
Nope. Wrong number.
Some people love this version, saying that they gave Lola an actual personality and made her wacky like the others. Others absolutely despise what they did to Lola. It should be no surprise that I absolutely hate this version of Lola. First of all, if you like this version of Lola, good for you, but I can't stand her. This is as bad as character writing can get. The creators of the show even said that they never saw anything that Lola was in, so they just pulled this out of their asses. This is the kind of stuff that bad fanfic writers are made of. They couldn't bother to do actual research on the character and to try to expand upon her already existing personality, despite the fact that they created a new character, Tina Russo, who was pretty much exactly what Lola was like in the DC comics. Also, she may be quote-unquote wacky, but that doesn't mean she's funny. She's actually more one-dimensional than the original version of Lola ever was. Her entire identity is being a brainless, dumb blonde stereotype and obsessed with bugs. A character like that can be funny if they are just a one-note character like Lena Hyena from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. But they don't do that because they have to make her one of the main characters, which adds to why this version of Lola doesn't work. I've heard people say that this version of Lola fits with what they were doing with the show, but I completely disagree. When you manage to create a new character that is more similar to the original personality than the actual personality you gave the character, you know it's a mess. You can like this version of Lola, I won't shame you for it, but stop pretending like this is good character writing when it's really the stuff that bad fanfic writers in middle school and high school would do. They couldn't even let her be good at sports, despite that her original debut was in a sports movie! I also have to say that I really hate her design. I mean, the show had animation that was kind of rough at the beginning and looked different, but as the show went on, it started to look a little bit more like the traditional Looney Tunes style. Not completely, but a little bit more. However, Lola's design is just unrecognizable. Her feet are made ridiculously big, even for a cartoon rabbit. Her legs are too thin, and her face just looks awful. Kareen08 from DeviantArt, boy I hope I pronounced that right, did redesigns of Lola in a Looney Tunes show that looked much more like Lola while still keeping with the new style. So this version of Lola is just really unrecognizable to the point where if they change the color of her fur, you never know it was Lola unless someone told you. Rabbits Run. This is the first time that the personality of Lola from the Looney Tunes show made an appearance outside of the show where she's the main character, this time voiced by Rachel Ramirez, who does a really good impression of Kristen Wiig actually.
I make them in my sink, okay? The bathtub is where I keep my sweaters. I have a very teeny apartment. I keep my shoes in my stove. My freezer's full of sunglasses.
In this movie, Lola wants to create the perfect perfume and is so passionate about it that it causes her to lose her job due to causing destruction to the store and terrorizing the customers. She meets Bugs, who is a taxi driver, and he takes her home after a long detour because of her being scatterbrained. She goes to her apartment to get money to pay him, but is distracted by a flower that her landlord, Speedy Gonzalez, brought her because he knows she likes things that smell nice. It turns out the flower is actually a government thing or whatever that has the power to turn you invisible, which she doesn't realize. She makes a perfume from it. Bugs, who kept the meter running, sees what's taking her so long, or just falls asleep from waiting. The government goes after both of them, and hijinks ensues. You would think that I would hate this version because of how she is meant to be based off the Looney Tunes show version of Lola, but I actually actually don't hate or even dislike her at all. Don't get me wrong, I don't like her, since she is still a very out of character version of Lola. However, she's not that annoying because she has goals outside of just wanting a man and isn't really stupid but ditzy. Plus, she can be badass and really stand up for herself when others don't value her worth. She reminds me a lot of Phoebe Buffay from Friends. If this was a new character and not meant to be Lola, she'd be a great character. In fact, the Looney Tunes show should have given Lola the personality they gave Tina, and then gave Tina the personality of this version of Lola. As you can see, the quality of the animation is very low, and using the design that Lola had in the Looney Tunes show makes her stand out like a sore thumb when all the other characters have their traditional Looney Tunes designs. I get that since they were using the personality she had in that show, they wanted to use that design to make her more recognizable, but it didn't work. But overall, the character is okay. If it wasn't for her being Lola, she'd be a great character. However, as Lola, she's not bad, but not good either. New Looney Tunes. Lola, once again voiced by Susie, first made her appearance in this show at the very end of the episode Heir to the Throne, where she is the Auntie of Dragons and a satire of a character from Game of Thrones. But hell if I know, because I don't watch that show and I have zero interest in it. Anyway, Lola then made her solo debut in the episode Lola Rider, where she gets to race with Rhoda Roadhouse, a showboating egomaniac. Here, we get to see her actually be able to partake in some traditional Looney Tunes style hijinks. She then makes her third and final appearance in the episode Rhoda Derby, where, once again, she's facing off against Rhoda. However, this time she's more like an overzealous fangirl and completely oblivious to Rhoda's annoyance, rather than intentionally getting under her skin with her trickster antics that Looney Tunes are known for. This version of Lola was what many call the perfect blend of her Space Jam personality and her Looney Tunes show personality. She was smart, strong, and competent, but was also loony and wacky like a traditional Looney Tune, without having to be a dumb blonde stereotype. I personally see her more as a comic book version of Lola making her screen debut, only with a terrible art style. I absolutely adore this version of Lola, and it proves that she can carry her own cartoon shorts without relying on bugs and can be wacky without having to be a man-crazy moron. I wasn't too crazy with how she was portrayed in Rhoda Derby, but I chalk it up to her just being one of those really enthusiastic sports fans that get so excited they don't act like how they usually would. Where she shined best was the episode Lola Rider. She was witty, sassy, clever, wacky, and really funny. She gets to act like a traditional Looney Tune, and Susie proves that she still got it and even proved the character.
You're going down, Lady Bunny.
Actually, I'm pretty sure you're going down.
No, you're going down.
You're going down.
You're going down.
You're going down.
No, you're going down.
You're going down.
You're going
Down.
You're going
Down.
Yeah.
Down.
Let's just race, okay?
Fine. But you're going down. Now, if I'm gonna win this car race, I'll need one thing. A car.
I caught up to you.
Any racer can go fast, but the best racers like me know when to go slow.
Oh, I can go way slower than you. Try going slower now.
Wow, you're right. You are the slowest. I guess I'll have to settle for being the fastest.
Absolutely awesome! Space Jam: A New Legacy. And we come to the last entry on this list, the sequel to the original Space Jam. I won't go into what the movie is about because everyone knows it unless you've been living under a rock without any Wi-Fi. However, I will explain Lola's part of the movie. Years before the events of the movie took place, the villain of the film, Al G. Rhythm, convinced all the Looney Tunes, except for Bugs, to venture out of their world and explore all the other Warner Brothers properties. Lola went into the world of Wonder Woman and her Amazons, where she had trained for years to become an official member of the Amazons. She had to pass a test, which is interrupted by Bugs and LeBron James, where she gets to show off how badass she is and what a feisty and witty character she is. She claims to have given up basketball and is about to finish before time runs out until she hears LeBron say that he had to save his son, to which she saves both Bugs and LeBron. Believing she failed, Diana tells her that she passed because a warrior is judged not only by her skills, but by her values. She then joins them and is second in command next to LeBron, due to her being the most skilled basketball player out of all the Looney Tunes. Before I talk about the character herself, there are some things to get out of the way. First of all, I couldn't care less about how they quote-unquote desexualized her. True, there's nothing wrong with a woman being both badass and comfortable with her sexuality. However, she's a rabbit. She shouldn't have been sexualized to begin with. I do get the argument of female characters having their feminine features taken away in order to appear empowering and strong. However, I don't see that as a big deal with Lola because she's not a human character. Besides, she is far from being one of the worst cases of female characters being stripped of their feminine features. It's not like they changed her face or anything, she still looks great. Besides, it was more of what the director said that was offensive and insulting than Lola herself, basically saying that she couldn't be a strong character because of her sexuality. Anyway, with that out of the way, I thought the character was actually great in this movie. She got to show off how badass she is, had moments where she could be a genuine Looney Tune, was well animated, was allowed to have her skills at basketball be more utilized, and got to interact with other Looney Tunes and LeBron. However, I do wish she had more moments where she could be wacky, and she probably would have been more wacky if she was voiced by Susie. This is what happens when a celebrity voices a character that requires a professional voice actor. Plus, I felt like her and Bugs' relationship was just non-existent. It was like they had no romantic involvement to begin with, and their feelings for each other aren't really clear. I feel like they should have done more like what was done with Kermit and Miss Piggy in the 2011 Muppets film. They had a history that was affecting both of them and unfinished business that is resolved in the end because of their genuine love for each other and their really strong chemistry. However, I really loved the way her character was better utilized and given more of an active role in the plot than she was in the original film. Overall, this version of Lola was an improvement from the original Space Jam, but she was still very flawed and could have been better. But the Amazon Wonder Woman Lola Bunny scene was absolutely the best part of the movie. And now it's time for the rankings. Number 10, The Looney Tunes Show. An absolutely atrocious way of writing a character and as insulting as you can get. Number 9, Dating Do's and Don'ts. Yeah, she's just a dim-witted hollow shell and a trophy. Number 8, Rabbit's Run. She would be a great character on her own, but since she's supposed to be Lola, that's what makes her just okay. Not bad, but not good. Number 7, Tweety's High-Flying Adventure. She's cool here, but that's it. Number 6, Baby Looney Tunes. A great character that is full of spunk, but she is still just a baby. Number 5, Space Jam. A great character, but was really underutilized. Number 4, Loonatics Unleashed. An awesome and underrated character from an underrated and overly hated show. Number 3, Space Jam: A New Legacy. An improvement, but had some problems due to the casting and ignoring the relationship between her and Bugs, but still an awesome character. Number 2, New Looney Tunes. Her potential was utilized, though not nearly as much as I wished, due to her only being in 3 episodes. However, this proves that Lola has potential to be just as iconic and promotable as Bugs and Daffy, and we don't have to make her a bimbo to make her loony. And number 1, the DC Comics. This is the perfect version of Lola, and captures all the qualities that the character should have, and has none of the flaws that the other versions have. So Warner Brothers, get to work on some Lola Bunny shorts based on these comics, and please make sure that Susie provides the voice. And that's it. So, what did you guys think? Did you enjoy it? Did you agree with any of my opinions? What are your rankings for the best version of Lola? Let me know in the comments, and be respectful because I have the power to delete your comments. That's all, folks!